The countdown to Flight 9 is finally on. The ship and booster are getting ready to make their way out to the pad, which means NSF is getting ready to bring back our daily countdown to launch. Let's get into it.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RA-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight down to SC off. Bring in SC off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
There's nothing to be exciting and clear, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Welcome everybody to Countdown to Launch. This is our show that we begin as we get closer and closer to the next Starship flight, where we go over the status of everything on the ship, the booster, the ground equipment, and answer all of your questions ahead of, in this case, Flight 9. I am Sawyer Rosenstein, and I will be your host for today's proceedings. But thankfully, it won't be just me that you have to see and hear. I am joined today by my competent cohort of co-hosts, as Jack likes to say, starting off today with a voice that you've heard already once before, but now you get to see him, Ryan Caton. How's it going, Ryan?
Hello, everybody. It's good to be back on air.
Yeah, it's been such a long time. It's been, what, 3 hours since we last heard you on NSF?
Yep.
That's all, huh? Well, it's good to have you. And also joining us today is the other Ryan, Ryan Weber. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, back here again on camera from like last night. Hi everyone, how's it going?
Yes, it is the Ryan and Ryan show featuring Sawyer in the middle, and also producing is Ryan. No, I'm kidding. That is Jay Keegan today, who is pushing the buttons, pulling the levers. So I'd like to thank the producer. See, we thank the producers here at NSF. So Jay helping out with us on that today. And a reminder, of course, if you have any questions relating to the flight, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight. We will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can throughout today's show. So let's start things off where things are, well, technically already moving a bit. Let's start with Booster 14. So in terms of flight readiness and where we're at with it, let's start with Ryan. Weber, how about we start with you? What do you think, where are we at so far currently with Booster 14-2?
So 14 has, just this morning, was placed on the booster transport stand and is currently sitting in the ring yard right there. Crews are going up to take the sling adapters off of the catch points, which will only be used to lift the vehicle, as they are not catching this vehicle for this flight. They're going to do some fun stuff with it, which we can talk about in a little bit. But yeah, we expect it to roll out tonight. There's a closure that starts around 10 p.m. So I kind of expect this thing to roll out around then. 35 should follow shortly after that, or at least tomorrow, I guess. But yeah, it's out of the bay. It's on its stand. It's got a touch stage ring. Crews are just doing the final stuff before they roll it to the launch site and get it on the launch mount. So things are proceeding well for a launch on Tuesday, so far at least.
So far, so good. And we can see one of those lifts on the screen right there. Where are we at, I guess, in terms of, I know one of the big things that we look for ahead of flight as well is the FTS install. I think we're still a little ways away from that, Ryan?
FTS should be on both vehicles at this point. We've seen the explosives placard on both Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2. I think there was even the explosives placard at Massey's when 35 was there doing the spin prime that it did. So both vehicles should have their FTS. They do that now in the bays at this point. It's pretty safe. There's no real worried to it. They've got physical stops to prevent any activation of the system when it shouldn't be and whatnot. So both of them should have their FTSs installed, which means just roll to the launch site, get it on the launch mount, get it stacked, and go. That's kind of where we're at with that.
Beautiful. That's what we like to see and what we like to hear. So I don't want to say other Ryan, but I guess Ryan Caton, I'll toss this one over to you. So we see obviously the FTS there. We see them working at the top of the ship or at the booster. But one of the big things that I find interesting is the bottom. So we have 29 of the 33 engines down there that SpaceX has said will be reused. Any idea why they might not be reusing all 33 of them?
I don't believe there's been any official confirmation, but a variety of reasons I can lay out. Perhaps those 4 engines were just damaged beyond repair. Perhaps they destroyed one of them at McGregor for fun to see how far they could push the engine. Maybe there was some other reason SpaceX came up with for a reason they didn't want it to be reused. Perhaps there was an engine they wanted to physically cut apart and inspect and do detailed testing on all the different materials that are used inside the engines. These are very complicated, very complex pieces of machinery. So one of those or another reason perhaps, but there's been no official reason that's been listed.
And the hardest part with these also is the fact that we can't even really get to see the engine numbers until usually during lift, and we get some of them, and then you hope we get the under OLM camera from SpaceX afterwards, and we can figure out exactly which engines it were, which ones might or might not have been reused. Because I know the big thing for Booster 14 originally was, it was the first booster to refly an engine with the Pi engine 314. What do you think? Do you think they might even go for a third try with Pi on this one?
It would be interesting to see, but it would also be kind of disappointing because they're expending the booster on this flight, so we wouldn't see it ever again in the future. So that'd be quite sad to see it go. But you never know. I wouldn't put it past SpaceX to push it even further with that Pi engine number 314.
Yeah, because I mean, we've been seeing them do quite a bunch of engine testing and everything at McGregor, which you can watch live at McGregor Live 24/7. Ryan Weber, where are we at in terms of the testing over at McGregor? Have they been sticking with some of the V2 engines for the Raptor still? Has it mainly been kind of switching over to V3? Basically kind of wondering how much of the testing do you think is still for these upcoming flights with the current configuration versus when they switch over to the Raptor 3s?
There's still a lot of testing with Raptor 2. They got to do their qualification testing. So when the engine comes from the factory, they do their initial qualification testing, and then they send it down to Starbase to get integrated on a vehicle. And they still need engines for 15 to fly again, for 16, for 17. I mean, honestly, 16 should have all of its engines by now, and I even think 15 might even have it set back again. Because they took them all off after for the initial refurbishment and inspections. 35 still 36 is still going to get some, 37, and then of course 38. And after that, I don't think there's going to be any more vehicles with Raptor 2. I don't think so. I think those are going to be your last ones, and then they might switch over to Raptor 3 near the end of the year. So they still got to test them for trying to figure out. I mean, in their basically their mishap report that they gave to us, they basically were talking about how they did a bunch of tests to try to figure out why one of the Raptors failed on the last flight and stuff like that. And of course, there's just qualification testing. So they're still doing a lot of Raptor 2 stuff along with Raptor 3 as they make the switch over. Eventually, it'll all be Raptor 3, and then I don't know what they'll do with their leftover Raptor 2 engines. I mean, you have any left over, I'll take one. But, at that point, they're kind of useless because everything's going to be flying Raptor 3 at that point. So
I think they'll make a nice lawn ornament.
Yeah, I agree. I'll take one.
Yeah, or turn it into
maybe, I'll correct that. Maybe a driveway ornament. They're quite big.
SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, they have a table made from one of the grid fins from an early Falcon. So, Raptor tables, anybody?
A I'll just put it in. I'll stick it in my apartment right behind me. I don't know if it'll fit, but I'll find a way. All right. Talk about a background. Wouldn't that be? Yeah, that'd be an amazing background. Anyways.
And honestly, I think that might be interesting in terms of, we're talking obviously booster 14 is going to be reflown but not reused. For those who are unaware, the profile for this has it where booster 14 will be splashing down in the Gulf and not actually landing and being caught, or sorry, Falcon 9, being caught back at the chopsticks there. So I wonder, is this maybe a way for them to kind of get rid of some of those extra Raptor 2s? Is this kind of a way of basically just testing and then getting rid of older hardware in advance of new hardware, Ryan Caton?
Maybe.
Yeah, it's all speculation, but I just wanted your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I know. I have to be honest. I'm very sad they're not catching this flight. I think they should just go for it. What do they? Okay, I was going to say what do they have to lose, but they have quite a lot of money to lose if they have a failed catch. How's a better way of phrasing this? If they say they're going to go for a catch, and if they want to go for a catch, they can always abort. I mean, we saw that perfectly with Flight 6. The intent was to go for a catch, and then because of the reasons they laid out, they had to abort the catch attempt, and they instead did a splashdown in the Gulf with a giant fireball. Either get if SpaceX goes the route of saying we're going to try a catch, but it might not work, we either get a catch of a reused Super Heavy, which would be incredible, or a giant fireball in the Gulf, which would be incredible. Like this is a win-win situation. But now they just go, oh, we're just gonna throw it away. That's so boring, right? Our hype video would be 10 times better if they were going to go for a catch. Just saying. That's all I'm going to say.
I think there's a few reasons why they're not doing it. One, it's an older booster. From what we can tell, this is the fourth to last flight for Pad A, meaning even if they got this booster back, they would cut it up and scrap it anyways because they don't really have a lot of place to store it. They have to make storage stands to do it, and I don't know if they're really have the manpower or the time to do that at the moment because they got a lot of they're still, I'd say this, they have a lot of crews still making tooling for Star Factory that they've been making for months and months on end. I don't really know if they have the manpower to transfer over and make a storage stand for something. But right now Booster 12 is sitting on it's sitting on the stand that Booster 4 was on, which is one of the really, really original booster stands. It's not a pretty one, we'll put it that way. There's that. There's, getting rid of the Raptor 2 engines rather than scrapping those. Basically, they either scrap them or save them. And that requires room to save 33 engines. There's the whole point of, and this kind of goes with it's being reused. It's a reused booster. Do you take the risk, or does the FAA not want the risk of them trying to catch a reused booster because they don't know exactly how it performs? Maybe you don't roll that dice and you just go ahead and dunk it in the Gulf no matter what. They can't go for a catch on this one. It's off the license, so they would have to get the license amended again if they wanted to even try it, which would delay the flight. And I guess the other part of that is like they did with Falcon 9 when they go in and expend older hardware, they can try different things like what they're doing with this vehicle. They have a modification on the hot stage ring, so part of it's covered up to where they're going to try to push the booster in a certain direction rather than trying to do it in a randomized direction, which kind of is an interesting mod for it. You can't see the spot right there, but it's to the right of the rightmost grid fin, basically, right where the raceway goes up. It's 90 degrees around the circle, basically, of the booster is where it is. It's on the QD side of the boosters where that cover is. So they'll try to push the booster away. And then on top of that, they're going to try a higher angle of attack reentry for more drag, which can help slow them down more, which means less propellant to use on the landing burn, which means more propellant to use on the ascent burn later on. So you can have more performance out of the booster, means you can get more payload to orbit. They're just trying new stuff with this. And then on top of that, they're even doing more experiments. They're going to intentionally shut off one of the center 3 engines. they're going to do that, and then they're going to try to use one of the inner ring of 10. They're going to try to turn one of those on and use that as a backup, which is going to be kind of interesting because we'll see how much residual propellant is left in the tank to make that engine work. There's a chance that the propellant isn't exactly settled very well, and when they go to ignite that engine, they hard start it and blow it up. There's a chance that happens to that engine. It really depends on which one they light up, depending on the orientation of the booster. But if they light a certain one up, there may not be any propellant or just enough propellant to light it, but after that, it cavitates and blows up and takes the booster with it. There's that possibility, but they're already expending it anyways, so it doesn't really matter that much. But there's a lot of cool things they're going to try with this. They're going to try for redundancy and try for basically refining stuff. So it's an interesting flight. Even though they're not catching it, there's a lot of interesting stuff they're doing.
And along those lines, Blue Creeper was asking, how do we think 14's landing burn will go with this kind of new setup? Because they think maybe 12 engines, then 3, then 2, another order, more or less. What do you think?
They could easily go instead of a 13, they could do a 12. I kind of read it as they were just going to do basically a 3-engine landing burn, but using one of the ring of 10 plus 2 of the centers, and then probably down select to 2 and try to finish off with a 2-engine landing or something like that. They may even try to do a landing with only 12, although they already demonstrated they can do a landing on 12 engines. So this one didn't. I think it was 15. One didn't restart. So
Yeah, it's the last flight.
yeah. They already demonstrated they could do that. I mean, they could try to shut off another one and do it on 11. I still believe they could do it. They just got to run the burn for a little bit longer on the 11 rather than the 12 or 13. So I don't think the initial one is. I think it's the down select to 3 that they're trying to see how they can do. Now, when Raptor 3 comes along, they're going to have more thrust out of those engines. So they might actually even only do 2-engine landings down then, because your thrust to weight ratio changes because you're getting more thrust out of those 3 engines. So they may even down select that. And also the configuration, the clocking of the engines basically is changing on the next booster design. So there's a lot of cool things they're doing.
There really is. And as we look, by the way, right now, you could see the hot stage ring up at the top there of booster 14. And Christian has a question. Katie, I'll throw this one to you versus Webby. No, that doesn't sound good either.
Please don't.
Trying to figure out how to separate the different Ryans
no, that
here.
wasn't. I don't know about that one.
Ryan Caton.
Oh dear.
I don't know what should I use to separate you. You got Webby, and then you got.
If only we had legally defined names that separate us between which Ryan is which. If only.
Fine, I'll just call you Weber and Caton then. How about that? Sounds like a law firm. Christian wants to know, will they keep the hot stage ring on the booster on the descent? Because I know that's something eventually down the line, maybe they integrate it in, and while they're doing the different approach testing, is the hot staging ring set to stay on, or will it separate as it has the last couple of flights?
Well, on the timeline SpaceX published, there is a hot stage ring jettison event in that timeline. So, SpaceX changing the timeline the day before launch isn't unprecedented. They've done that in the past, because I distinctly remember creating a timeline graphic from the information SpaceX had provided, and that information then being outdated by the time we've actually come to use that graphic. So I've had to redo the graphic with the new updated timings. But as you can see there, hot stage ring jettison is on the current timeline. I highly doubt that is something that would be removed, simply because SpaceX has said in the past that they need to jettison the hot staging ring for any chance of recovering that booster, right? We saw quite spectacularly what happens when they don't jettison the hot staging ring. So yeah, I would be, if SpaceX wants, any hope of being able to land, catch the booster, in the ocean, so to speak, then they'll need to do the normal flight profile they would do. I mean, they're going to the Gulf, but they're still doing a boost back burn, right? So we have a lot of All the flight steps are pretty much exactly the same. They're just going to be happening a little bit earlier because the booster obviously won't be coming all the way back to the pad, right? It'll be still splashing down a little bit downrange. Fingers crossed close enough so we can see it, but still not all the way back to the pad. But it's doing a boost back burn, it's doing a hot stage jettison, it's doing all the stuff we've seen before, just in a slightly more, in a bit more of a rapid time frame compared to, say, the last couple flights where the booster's been caught.
Right, and along those lines, Ravshan was asking, so when we talk about this new profile that it's set to come down on, they mentioned a higher angle of attack. They're wondering, does that mean, will that be more horizontal or more vertical?
It's going to be more horizontal because you're going to want more drag. So more horizontal means more of the booster will be into the air stream. So I mean they're kind of like this right now. My guess is it's going to be more like a belly flop style. Not exactly a belly flop, but they're going to try to do that. The booster should be able to take it just fine. That thing is structurally strong. Like it's stronger than a ship even. And the ship can do a belly flop, so I'm pretty sure the booster can do it too. And they'll basically try to do it with mag, and then I guess during the landing burn they'll do a partial flip. Not really a flip, but like they'll reorient it back vertical, and whatnot. So they're basically just trying to do this to bleed more speed off using aerodynamics rather than trying to use propellant. Because if they can do it and it actually works well, they can do it on future flights and then future boosters, and they can save more propellant for the ascent burn, as I was saying before, which would lead to more. That leads to more performance, which leads to more payload capacity to orbit. So, and they're expending it anyway, so why not try it? If they lose the booster on going back, they lose it. Whatever, they're already expending it anyways, and it might look pretty cool if it were to break apart like that. That might actually look cool. So.
Right, and metric unit, Brian. The license in the past has talked about, if there was a issue with the booster coming down and things on the catch, versus going off into the Gulf, catching with this. The fact that they're not set to catch the booster, if it does go kaboom when it hits the Gulf, it's not considered a mishap at that point, right?
If it
I said Imperial units, Ryan, but either one of you could take it.
I guess you can, Ryan. You can take that one. Yeah.
Sorry, freedom units, Ryan.
The point of the mishap investigation being implemented is when something does not follow the plan that was filed before that flight takes place. So because SpaceX has filed this flight to say we're not going back. I mean, it's even removed from the launch license. Boca Chica, Starbase, Texas is removed from the launch license as a return location. So because that has been removed, there is no way SpaceX can come back to the launch site. Their intent is to splash down in the Gulf, right? So if they perform all of their current mission objectives successfully, that wouldn't be classed as a mishap because they've completed all of the things they told the FAA they would do. And this is what the FAA has signed off on. It's, we've even seen all of the environmental documentation saying to the FAA, so yeah, we've looked at all of these things. We don't think there's going to be an incredible increase in environmental impacts. Therefore, we don't find any significant impact. The FAA has said that when they issued their finding of no significant impact. That's literally what it's called, that document there. So it's the same with the ship, right? The ship splashes down, is meant to splash down in the Indian Ocean. When that has been happened, there hasn't been a mishap investigation because that's what it was meant to do, right? The ship obviously splashed down in the Indian Ocean. It didn't survive for a period of time. It probably sunk to the bottom of the ocean, maybe in a few pieces. But that's exactly what was meant to happen. So there wasn't a mishap investigation for that because the ship did what it was meant to do, right? So even though both the booster in the ship might end up in, well, the booster very much probably will end up in an explosion this flight. The ship will probably end up at the bottom of the ocean following this flight. That's exactly what SpaceX intends to do, so there shouldn't be a mishap for it.
There we go. So if we do see a little bit of an explosion, if they, do a simulated catch burn, so to speak, and then it does just make its way down to the ocean and go kaboom, that's
We've
totally
already seen it
fine.
on Flight 6. It's not a little bit of an explosion. It's like a huge
Well-
mushroom cloud, a fireball, right? It's not very small, Sawyer. This thing's 70 meters tall, but yeah.
Relatively speaking, yeah, exactly. Before we move on to talking about the ship, which obviously you see there on your screen, I do want to thank some people here. Matt, Mike Alpha Tango Sierra, with 50 gifted Red Team memberships. Thank you so much for that. If you got one of those gifted memberships, please make sure you give Matt a big hip hip hooray. Thank you for that. That is absolutely spectacular, and especially with everything coming up now with the Starship Flights, we're going to have the multi-views coming back. So members get the members multi-view in 4K as we get closer to launch. Lots of exciting things that you'll be able to get with that. So perfect time to become a member. Thank you very much for gifting those. Carol becoming a Pad Rat member. Thank you very much for that. Along with Rolf becoming a Pad Rat member and Geraldine upgrading to Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that. We really do appreciate it. Now, as we see the booster land there, the work also, here's the boom, by the way, for reference. So that was kind of the simulated burn there for the catch. And then settles down.
It's very slow. It falls very slowly, and then suddenly there's a fireball on the horizon.
Falls over and kaboom.
So what I expect to happen for this one is like a decent amount, because most of the LOX tank was still intact on 13 after it fell over and exploded. I suspect in order to make it sink faster and everything, they will landing burn somewhat a little bit higher, and then shut the engines down and let the booster fall like maybe 100 meters or something like that. Just fall and slam into the ocean as hard a decent amount, just so it breaks up more and explodes. That's what I kind of expect during this one, just to ensure that it's in pieces and whatnot. So yeah, we'll see if that happens, but that's kind of what I expect.
Let the boosters hit the floor. Let the boosters hit the floor. Anyway, moving on then. Let's move on to Ship 35, which we see there. It looks like we might hopefully get the Pez dispenser to actually work on this flight and see the dummy links deploy, but Ryan Caton, it doesn't seem like they've been loaded up yet. Where are we at currently with the status of Ship 35?
Yeah, so as we saw over the last few days, they rolled the ship back out to Massey's for what felt like an eternity. They've been doing so much testing on if this ship doesn't go well, then I don't know what else SpaceX has to do, because they've rolled this thing to Massey's God knows how many times at this point. But they conducted a spin prime test. We saw that, just a little poof of whiteness under the ship there, which is what a spin prime does. They spin up the liquid oxygen pump, I believe. That's no ignition. That's all it is. So that seems to have gone well, because they rolled it back to Mega Bay 2. It's been rolled in, and it's now hooked up, as you can see there, in front of the door. And they've opened the door. Just before we went on air, SpaceX opened the door, which is very helpful for us. And we've seen the Pez dispenser door open up, and we've seen them kind of rigging up for now. We haven't seen any boilerplate Starlinks be actually inserted into the vehicle yet, I don't believe. But fingers crossed that should be happening shortly. This is the kind of same time of day that it happened for the previous flight. They kind of opened up the door in the early afternoon, and then during the evening and into the night, they started loading the Starlink. So this is something we've seen before on the previous Starship flight in the pre-launch preparations for Flight 8. So fingers crossed they get them loaded on there shortly and then get it rolled out to the launch site. Because I'll be honest, if they don't roll that thing out this weekend, I have my doubts on Tuesday happening. But fingers crossed everything goes smoothly from here.
Right, and it is also worth remembering that this is, in the United States, a holiday weekend, and Monday is a federal holiday. So just stuff to keep in mind as we see them planning and getting ready for this flight here. And of course, while we see things happening a lot similar to the previous loading of the ships and the previous flights, the one thing we hope that we don't see similar to the previous flights is that earth-shattering kaboom, and it actually, well, at least until it gets to its designated splashdown zone. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about this on the Flame Trench yesterday, but Ryan Weber, for those who weren't watching that, can you kind of just give a rundown of, according to SpaceX, what they say is the difference with Flight 8 and what we hopefully won't see on Flight 9?
Yeah, according to SpaceX, a Raptor center had a hardware issue and a failure, which led to the liberation of the engine, which also, I guess, led to the liberation of an RVAC as well, which they don't talk about. But I mean, they talk about it. It led to that RC failed, or the Raptor center, Raptor sea level failed, which led to the lost control of the vehicle. They called it a hardware failure, and they're going to do some more preloading and take some other measures to try to stop it. They did explain that it's a different issue than Flight 7, and that the mitigations they did for the harmonics and other stuff worked prior to the failure. So, yeah, that's what SpaceX stated. But yeah, we'll see if this ship succeeds. I already stated my confidence yesterday at TFT. I'm not 100%. I'm not very confident in it, but I mean, I would love to see it succeed. I really want to see this program just go forward. It's kind of doom and gloom watching these things blow up. I'd love for it to get past Seco. I want to see those Starlink deploy. I want to see the camera that's on top of that FTS box showing the Starlink deploys. I want to see that in Space Raptor relight, and then please, I want to see re-entry shots with those Block 2 forward flaps. Like, I really do. I hope we get that. So, yeah, SpaceX says they're ready to go. The mishap investigation is still open for Flight 8, but they got a safety determination sign off by the FAA to allow them to fly Flight 9. So I guess fingers crossed it doesn't blow up again. Fingers crossed it makes it through. And if it does blow up, maybe it'll be on re-entry because they took a lot of the tiles off on it. If they lose on re-entry, I won't be mad. That's good data. That's helpful. Everything like that. They learn where they can't lose tiles. That's kind of an important one. But I shouldn't say they can't afford to lose another one at Seco, because I mean, financially and other stuff they can. It's just not a great look to lose another one. That's 3 in a row. So I just fingers crossed it makes it. And then if it does, I mean, Flight 10 might not be that far behind. I mean, 36 is getting its engines, and 16 should be ready for a static fire as soon as Pad A is ready to go after the launch. So, yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Also, by the way, shocked, right? Weber with a little bit of pessimism on something? No, I'm kidding. But, that really is what it's going to come down to, is this thing making it past, making it at least to Seco properly, and then being able to do all of the in-space testing. I'm interested to see what chat thinks. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that we will actually see this make it to Seco? Do we think we'll see this make it all the way down to the Indian Ocean in one piece prior to hitting the water? I'm very interested to see what chat thinks on that. Now, if we do actually get to that point for the re-entry, while we're talking about what's behind Ryan Weber there, Ryan Caden, what's the plan with the TPS tiles, the thermal protection system tiles? This is a little bit different too, right?
Yeah, so as SpaceX has explained for the previous 2 flights in a row, they are testing some new thermal protection system techniques, some new tile techniques. If they do indeed do this on this flight, I believe they had an active cooling tile they were testing with, some metallic tiles they were playing with as well. But as the other Ryan also said, along the sides of the ship, they've actually pulled back those tiles, so there's more stainless steel that is exposed to will hopefully be exposed to the thermal regime of re-entry. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes, because on the final flight of the Block 1 Starship, they did the same thing by pulling back that thermal protection system, and we saw the steel got very wrinkly, it got very discolorized, and it was quite incredible to see that they actually managed to get that thing to a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean, considering, you know, how badly the steel had been hit. But of course it could have been worse, but considering how badly the steel had been hit compared to, you know, fresh steel that's just been rolled out. And here you can see where those tiles have been pulled back. Now you might notice they've actually kind of painted in a little bit there on the side of the ship, but you can see if you look very carefully between the lighter black and the darker black, there's a bit of a tapered edge there on those heat shield tiles which SpaceX has put in. So there you can see how far back that thermal protection system has actually been pulled back. And fingers crossed, we're actually getting a wonderful view of the catch pins here as well. So this should also kind of help SpaceX in adding in those catch pins, because of course when you go to catch your ship, you don't want to then knock off a bunch of tiles, because then you can't rapidly reuse it. You'll have to send out a team to reinstall the tiles, right? That's not what you want to do with your rapidly reusable Starship. So yeah, all of this is hopefully going to help the vehicle progress towards becoming operational, rapidly reusable. That's the entire end goal of the Starship program. So if the ship can survive with this current thermal protection system layout, then that would be pretty impressive. But of course, the only way we can find out is by waiting and seeing.
Yeah, they've put, where they take the tiles out, they basically put in like an ablative paint, or just in some kind of an ablative on there. So it's not fully exposed stainless. It's still kind of some ablative in there, but it's basically to try to say, what if we lost a tile here? What happens?
Yeah.
And then where they pulled it back, yeah, you can see the ablative they've done. They've even, this is a first, they've added some kind of a ablative paint layer to the ramps that they're in. And yeah, we got a fully structural catch pin and everything. There's a little bracket that you see installed on there. That's an adapter for the slings that they use to lift through those. They're just bolted on. They're like pinned in, basically. So those will get removed once they disconnect the bridge crane, which it's still currently hooked up to right now. But those will get disconnected before rollout. So they've spent a lot of time on the heat shield, a lot of different experiments, and boy, do I feel for the heat shield team these days, especially the last two failures. They've done a lot of work to set up these experiments and haven't gotten any data on it. So I hope they get data on this one and they learn a lot from everything. So, you know, man, that because having to do this on 36 as well, it's just yeah, I mean, they're probably going to do it anyway on 36, but having to recreate the same exact experiments rather than trying to expand the experiments on 36 based on performance, that's kind of a little bit different. So they just don't have any data on what they've done so far, so they keep on adding stuff to the ship, thinking like, well, let's test this again, let's hope it gets there, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I have to say, in terms of how chat is feeling, it seems like it's either 25 or 30% that it'll make it, or 80% that it'll make it to Seco. So it's very,
I've got to be honest, I was 50-50 before the update tomorrow, but SpaceX's update yesterday, I was 50-50, but they've publicly stated the issue that brought down Flight 7 and the issue that brought down Flight 8 are distinct. They are separate things that have gone wrong. That's what SpaceX has said, right? But they didn't mention anything to do with the Raptor vacuum engines. They didn't mention anything to do with the fire we observed in the aft section. But, you know, SpaceX has said these two problems are separate. So, personally, I don't really see any reason to disregard that information from SpaceX. I wouldn't see any reason why SpaceX wouldn't, you know, anything along those lines. So it's really given me a bit more confidence in that ship getting to Seco, as I think is this the final bit of the high bay which is about to come down?
The final piece.
It is.
A wall to come down. For those of you who don't know, the last vehicle to have any kind of stacking inside high bay was 35. Its payload bay and nose cone were put together on the turntable inside high bay, and once that was done, they eventually took out the turntable and everything. So once this goes, that's it. The only other vehicles that had any other stacking inside that bay other than 35 is Ship 20 over there, sitting over there and on the left side. That's all that's left of any remnants from this. Once this is gone, they'll dig up its foundation in the concrete, and then they'll bring in piling drills and start drilling. Like, I don't even remember how many piles. I'd have to count what's over at Roberts Road, but there's at least 100.
Many.
I think piles that they have to drill for Giga Bay and then dig out its foundation. It's going to take several months just to do the foundation for Giga Bay. So once this comes down, they just got to start digging up the rest of the concrete. So should be soon. I think they were cutting the last pieces and the excavators are starting to back up here.
Who would have thought that we would have the High Bay being demolished before GTA 6? I mean, I could have been meaner. I could have said, who would have thought we would have had High Bay crashing before a successful flight of Starship Ship V2, but...
I thought High Bay was going to be gone a couple of weeks ago. I'm kind of surprised it took them this long to get it, but here we are.
We are indeed.
Yeah, this is the last piece of the build. So there were 3 buildings, basically, that needed to be demoed. There was Stargate, there was High Bay, and then the wedge off Star Factory all had to be demoed in order to get all the area cleared for Giga Bay, and this is the last piece. The Stargate is gone. It's completely gone. All the concrete for it's gone, and then the Star Factory wedge is also gone as well. So we're just waiting on this thing to go. At the end of an era. I remember when this thing was the tallest piece at Starbase, even before the tower was built. The launch tower was built for it.
So now I wonder if the question is, will we get Giga Bay built before GTA 6? Because that might be possible at this rate,
no.
too.
I think, unless GTA 6 gets delayed till 2027, even looking at where they're at with Roberts Road, with some of the satellite images and other things I've seen, Roberts Road, they're still working. They're still setting up stuff for the foundation, and they're about 4 months into it. Spoiler alert: Giga Bay is not the same type of building like Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2. It's going to take a while to build that bay. It's gigantic. It's like 130 by 110 by 115. That's meters. That's a huge building for 24 stations for working on starships and boosters. So it's going to take a bit to build.
Yeah, it's like 75% the size of the vehicle assembly building in Florida. The largest single-story building in the world. It's nearly the size of that. This thing is going to be huge.
Basically, if you're on Highway 4 in this location, once it's done, you won't see Mega Bay 1 or Mega Bay 2 at all.
You have to be like that to be able to look up at the roof.
You'll see the top, and then you'll see 2 doors that are facing Highway 4, basically, where the vehicles will come out, and that's what you'll see. That's just about it. You'll see Mega Bay is 1 and 2 still as long as they're still standing, I should say, when you drive in. But other than that, if you're next to Highway 4, you're not going to see them. So.
Yeah, and for those who've seen the VAB, it is massive. So something 75% of that, as if the skyline hasn't already changed enough over at Starbase. It's impressive.
The thing that impresses me the most, right, is it feels like I was in Starbase like yesterday. It's been a couple months, but it feels like I was in Starbase yesterday. This building was 100% constructed, and now we're about to see the last bit of it be torn down. That is mind-blowing to me. That building has literally disappeared since I got home. That's just bonkers.
Bonkies indeed. Speaking of things that'll probably be coming down not in one piece, Ship 35.
Oh, you can't do that, Sawyer. You can't do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For those, just to say, I guess, you know what, I'll wait for you to get a shot of it before I mention it. But there's something else to say. There it is. Pad 8 fixed.
You can't overuse it, Jay. Why did I give you these things to play with? You're overusing it.
Okay, well, to be fair, he didn't use it. Well, he didn't use it for the high bay thing, but then again, it didn't. The wall didn't fall. But here we go.
Yeah.
He hasn't used it. Kevin kind of used it a bit much yesterday during TFT. Anywho, these, I don't know if they're going to go up all the way. If they don't, and they just stay up here and they open up a little bit, that would be about the height they would be for a booster rollout. So either they're going to sit there and stay there, or SpaceX is going to ignore all road closures like they do a lot of times and just roll booster 14, which would be kind of funny. But yeah,
Funny is a word for it, yeah.
yeah.
Which, in terms of, while we're at it, the pad infrastructure there so far, I mean, have we seen any other final work done at the pad, or is it all just waiting for once the ship and booster are there, then we see all of the major stage 0 action happen, Ryan Caton?
See, now you've said that, you've got me thinking. Now you've said that, you've got me thinking.
There isn't much. Really,
Yeah.
anything for it. So when they roll the booster out and put it on the pad, the dance floor will go up, and they have to take the engine covers off because those will be on when they roll it out. Then they have to hook up all the engine lines. So there's engine chill lines on the current boosters. They're breakaway lines. So basically, what happens is they just the lines break when it lifts off because they go into an engine chill manifold. They basically siphon the locks off for the engine chill and put it into a pond next to the water retention pond. Luckily, all that's going away on Pad B, but that was their solution to the Booster 7 spin boom. So that's just stayed with Pad A since then. They have to hook all those in, take the covers off, then do some final checks on it, and bring the dance floor down. They have to take the stabilizers back off again. I think they put them. I don't know if they put them back on or not. I would assume they did because I don't think they want to ding an engine bell when they lower it back in. I have to double check again. But then after that, they clear everything out, get the ship out there, stack the ship, hook up, make sure both QDs are hooked up, and then that's pretty much it. There isn't much else to do with it.
They've really gotten that down to a science. They've gotten it so much quicker from previous flights, from getting it on, getting everything hooked up, and then it's just the final FOD sweep and off you go. Yeah,
they'll bring a sweeper out and they'll sweep the pad. They might do a deluge test, maybe not. I don't know. They haven't fired the deluge off since the Booster 14 static fire, so they might do a deluge test sometime this weekend when they get a full stack out there and they clear the pad. So I guess people should watch out for that, just to make sure it works. Because it hasn't fired in a bit, so you don't want that thing to not work before launch.
Yeah.
you go, oh, abort. You don't want to abort because of that. So they might fire that off just to make sure it's good to go. Probably see your normal DSS test. Once fully stacked, you'll see the grid fins move. You'll see the flaps move. They'll do a bunch of little things, just final pre-flight checks and stuff like that. But vehicles got to get out there first, and they're still here at the production site. So
yeah, we'll see once they start rolling out. And again, I guess the question then would be in terms of preparations for the rollout and preparations for launch itself. Ryan Caton, where are we at in terms of readiness for launch?
Where do we begin? Where do we begin? So just looking, I'll just do a quick recap of what we've already said, right? So the booster is now peeking out of the mega bay. The ship is getting ready for its Starlink boiler plates to be loaded, and we of course have an incredible amount of road closures posted. Whether SpaceX will actually utilize any of those windows, we'll just have to wait and see. The pad appears ready to accept the vehicles. And of course, we have regulatory approval from the Federal Aviation Administration, who licensed these launches. SpaceX has received their Flight 9 launch license. They've received a public safety determination, which essentially says Flight 8 didn't hurt anyone, so you're safe to fly again. They've also received a tiered environmental assessment into this flight, because of course the booster is it's going to be the first booster reuse. So the hazard areas, the FAA wants them expanded because of the 2 ship rods, and the fact that this is going to be the first reuse of a super heavy booster. I'll go into those details with the hazard zones first, because actually we've got our next spaceflight checklist below me here, which is very useful indeed. This has got a number of the things, so if you don't want to listen to me, go to nextspaceflight.com, download the App Store, Google Play. It has a checklist of all the Starship things you'll ever need to know. But speaking of the hazard zones, these have been increased dramatically, at least on the launch site end. The Indian Ocean ones they're either identical or very, very, very similar to the ones that we've seen before, both in terms of marine notices and air notices. On the launch side of things, however, the air hazards are being expanded dramatically. The notices to aviation that were put out for the previous few flights of Starship, they've barely extended into the Gulf. They've gone a bit into the Gulf. They haven't reached all the way to Florida. This time around, the FAA is publishing over 1,600 nautical miles worth of notices to aviation. That's ranging from Starbase, blocking off airspace, all the way to the Turks and Caicos Islands. And what's even more interesting is beyond that point, there are new NOTAMs which have been posted in the last couple of days in Trinidad and Tobago airspace and French Guianese airspace. These have been posted in a way which is far beyond that area which the FAA said that they were going to be setting out. These are like up to, there's another one, these are up to 5,000 kilometers downrange, right? 5,000 kilometers is the distance from Cape Canaveral to the Azores Islands. This is a huge swath of ocean which is being closed off. And what's the interesting part is, I'm not sure whether these were asked for by the FAA or whether these aviation authorities have posted these on their own without any request from the FAA. They're just being overly cautious. Because I'm not sure if Jay is able to zoom in on the Gulf, but the ones that the FAA said they were going to be posting kind of taper off into a triangle, into a wedge over the Turks and Caicos Islands. You can see, let's zoom out a bit more and go to the right a bit. There we go. We can see that, yes, so we can see the notice south of Florida, north of Cuba, a gap. We expect that to be filled in, and then a wedge that tapers off north of Haiti and the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. But then if we look even further, there's this new huge block which has been inserted in Trinidad and Tobago and in French Guianese airspace. This is way beyond what the FAA said they were going to be put in. I'm so confused why it's there.
Beyond the Leeward Islands into to the South Atlantic.
Yeah, this is so far beyond. Like for context, by the time Starship is over that area which has been hazarded out, it's going to be on its intended trajectory already. It's going to the Indian Ocean, no matter whether it blows up right there or not. Right, the period of the launch where the ship might actually end up in this area is incredibly minute. This is the biggest notice for a launch I've ever seen. It's huge. Why is it so big? Are they seriously? Yeah, but are they seriously that concerned that it's going to blow up? Like, why is it that big? All of the times that the ship has blown up before has been just before the end of its burn, and everything has re-entered over the Turks and Caicos, over the Caribbean. Why are they so concerned about French Guianese airspace, which is 5,000 kilometers downrange? Like, how on earth is something going to get that far? I don't know, but we're seeing a lot more hazard areas for this time around. It's kind of confusing. Hopefully we'll get an answer on it. But yeah, it's definitely something we're going to be keeping an eye on, because we have got many, many hazards that have been put in for the launch side of things. Now, I'm not sure if Jay can now spin the globe all the way over to the other side of the world, to the Indian Ocean, because we have all of the marine notices and all of the air notices which have been put in for the re-entry and the splashdown of the ship. So we can see this is pretty much the exact same shape it was before, for Flight 8, Flight 7, Flight 6, all the way back to Flight 2. So yeah, this is standard operating procedure for the re-entry. We've got a NOTAM in Madagascar airspace, one in Mauritian airspace, and one in Australian airspace, and of course that huge marine notice that spans pretty much the entire width of the Indian Ocean there. So this is exactly what we were expecting to see And this is all filed now. So we're just waiting for those final aviation notices in the Gulf of Mexico and in Miami Oceanic airspace. And once those are in, I mean, they're going to be pretty much good to go in terms of the notices and the regulatory side of things. And they can literally be released at any moment, right? So that's not a concern whatsoever. These notices have been literally thrown out. They've been published at random hours, random times. I think there was one the other day that was published at like 9 o'clock in the evening Eastern time, which is, I believe, what the FAA HQ operates in. There are some others that have gone out really early in the morning. There are some that have gone out midday. So this could literally come out anytime. We don't know when. But yeah, that's how everything stands so far in terms of the notices and the regulatory side of things with Starship Flight 9.
In this case, they also keep throwing them up in different countries now, too, for the downrange portion, of which my understanding, though, is that all of those like extended ones that we're talking about, those are still for areas that would be prior to to SECO, right? To the second stage cutting off?
Yeah, so it's you've kind of got to think about it as the future of where the ship will end up, because even though at the point of SECO, the ship is, assuming it goes well, it's still going to be over the Gulf. But if something goes wrong, that trajectory is going to continue downrange. So you've got to predict. This is what the FAA and SpaceX have been working together on updating. You've got to predict where, if there was an event that happened, where all of that debris is going to end up, which is why these areas have been expanded so much further than they ever have been before.
Yeah,
Hazard, explosion, and debris analysis. It's fun. Is you basically have to go, okay, here's where the ship is. What kind of explosion is it going to have or breakup? And then you have to basically map out the debris on where it could possibly land, and then take that area and close it off or do notices to cover it. So there's a lot of computer analysis that goes along with that to understand exactly what would happen to a starship that blows up. Which, well, you got 2 flights worth of knowing how a starship blows up and where it lands, so you got pretty good debris analysis, not just from a computer, in real world. So, you know. So, I don't know, I guess they're just being overly cautious at this point. Come on. Pull a high bay down. Do it. Get it over with.
Yeah, what's the saying? Once bitten, twice scorned, thrice the FAA is even unhappier? Is that how that works?
Can you just pull this thing down and get it over with? I'm so glad to see high bay go. So glad.
What have you got against high bay? High bay has given us some of the most every single starship that has worked to date was built in high bay. True,
but I mean, some of it was built in high bay has also failed too. A lot of it failed. SN9, SN10. I guess SN10 still failed. SN11. Hey, here's the good thing too. Once it goes, it's gonna make way for something far cooler.
You want a real drone? Once they pull that down, that high bay will officially be a lower bay. There's your reason to put the groan button there. Let me take a moment. Let me take a moment to thank some people here before I get even worse with my puns. Zero Fox, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Remy, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. LCTA, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Phil, also gifting a Red Team membership. Thank you very much for that. Anonymous getting an item from the shop at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, saying thanks for the outstanding coverage. Let's see what they ended up getting. Oh, there we go. One of the retro shirts. Very nice. And then Turtle Sanctuary with a $5 super chat saying, sorry for being late. Did Sawyer win the NSF trip to Hawaii or did he mug EJ? I need a shirt like that. Are they available anywhere? Well, you're in luck. They actually are. They are available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com as part of our Launch into Summer collection. Now, again, like I was saying the last couple times, it actually is really soft. It's really comfy to wear. There's lots of fun little Easter eggs in it. There's a couple different designs. So there's the one with the drone ship, and then there's the one that I'm wearing and that you see on screen that has the Dragon capsule on it. It also has the dolphins on it, if you remember, from the Return of Crew 9, when they splashed down, there were the dolphins all around it. And I love it with the blue color because it literally looks like they splashed down, see the parachutes, and then you got the capsule landed with the dolphins around it. I love it. It's such a cool design. Shout out to the shop team on it. And again, the colors are so summery. I mean, look at this. It looks so cool. You've got the orange, you've got the blue that I'm wearing. I really love this design. So the Hawaiian shirts are available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and they are made in the USA. So while they may seem like they're a little more expensive, you're getting the quality and you're getting stuff that's made right here in the US. So I honestly think it's worth it just wearing it. I love this. I will be wearing this unironically outside of the broadcast too. So just saying that. But yeah. And then there's the drone ship one. And don't forget, as we've talked about, both the booster and the ship are set to splash down on this one. We know they're not going to be doing the catch, but we have stuff just for that. So if you want to take a swim, just like Booster 14 is going to, ouch, that hurts to say. We also
I don't think it's going to be swimming for long, Sawyer. I'm going to be honest. I think it might go for a swim, decide it no longer wants to swim, and then spontaneously combust.
I think bits and pieces are going to swim.
What, like the grid fin, like we have on some of our merch for the swim club there, for the super heavy swim club?
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got shorts, we've got pajamas, we've got women's gear in there as well now. There's some of the towels, and yes, the super heavy swim club with the little grid fin just hanging out of the water. It's so sad, but we'll maybe actually get that. That would be kind of cool to see one of them floating. Just saying from a sad standpoint, but yeah. So all these are at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Oh, sorry, what was that? You like the tumbler that I'm drinking from too? This is also available at the shop. Sorry about that. Just got thirsty there all of a sudden. While we're talking about those tiles really quick, Nina was wondering earlier, what are the majority of the tiles made of? Ryan Weber, since they're behind you.
Have a look.
Oh, yeah, they're basically carbon tiles, kind of like the shuttle. And hey, shuttle reference, there you go. Yeah, they're basically like a carbon kind of, or yeah, silica. Basically. Either way, they're kind of like the main body shuttle tiles are like a silica kind of mixture. Basically, they're in a couple different sizes and whatnot. There's the standard like hexagon that you see behind me, and then there's the smaller one you see, which is let me move my head the other way. Those are used around the forward and aft domes. Are those smaller ones, and then there's even a slightly different size that are used around the common dome. They have external stringers around, and that's for Block 2. They're all pinned now too. And they have like specialty tiles. They stick around the flaps and stuff like that. So it's a cool heat shield design. Like right at the bottom, basically there's pins, and then there's basically a felt layer. There's a felt layer and ablative layer. The ablative, it goes ablative, then felt, then a mesh, and then the tile. Now on Ship 36, it's changed a little bit. So they've basically done, they have ablative on the bottom, and then the felt, rather than having like blankets of felt that they put it on top, they take the felt, cut it into little pieces, and then they fold it around the hexagons behind me, basically. They like fold it up as gap filler. So, and then that's basically along the entire tank wall, or at least that they started doing that on 36. I guess they'll start doing that on 37 and 38. It's just, well, they really haven't touched 37's heat shield at all. So I guess they're hoping to get data on 35 so they can do more stuff to it. But it's a really interesting design, especially to kind of take a hexagon and then put it around, because Shuttle had a lot of specialized tiles in a lot of different locations, and SpaceX wanted to get rid of that. No one wanted to go back to that. They wanted to try to take a single design so they could cover most of it. I mean, of course, you still have your specialized stuff, but nowhere near as many as Shuttle did. So it's a better design overall, I think.
Yeah, well, Shuttle also had the silica tiles. They had ones along the leading edge that were reinforced carbon, as well as you had the nose covering. You've had the white thermal blanket on it. It was a mishmash of everything on shuttle for that. Yeah, this is a lot simpler. As complicated as it looks, it's actually a lot simpler, it feels like. So, I have a question for each of the Ryans here. Do you think that we will see flight on the 27th? Ryan Kate, and I'll start with you, then Ryan Weber.
If they stop dilly-dallying and they get those Starlinks inside of ship, I'm telling you, SpaceX, get those Starlink boilerplates inside of a ship, and they roll the vehicles out over the weekend, I think there is a very good chance the 27th will be attempted. Now, whether they'll go on the first try, I'm not so sure, because of course we saw last flight they had to do a turnaround late in the count. But I think there is a good chance the 27th will at least be attempted. Now, I'm not worried about no wet dress rehearsal or anything, because they can't close the beach on today, tomorrow, or Monday, because it's, as we said earlier in the show, it's the Memorial Day federal holiday. The beach can't be closed regardless, right? So they're allowed to do the rollouts because they're what are called temporary road closures, so they only delay the highway for an hour or so, but they can't do a full beach closure during these federal holidays. So I'm not too concerned about a lack of a wet dress rehearsal, but I do think if they get the ship and the booster out this weekend, the 27th can be attempted, and I'm very curious to see what my colleague says, considering what we know now.
Ryan Weber.
Well, the whole thing is they need to get the dumb links, or what do you want to call them? I mean, you need to get the sim links, dumb links, and whatever. You need to get those loaded on 35. I kind of expected them to be done by now. It looks like they were setting up to do it yesterday afternoon, evening, and then they closed the door, and then they opened it again, or they closed the door to Mega Bay 2 and then opened it again last night. And then it looks like they opened the payload bay door, and then they finally started setting it up, and they just haven't started loading them yet. I really don't know what's going on with that. But 14 should go to the pad tonight. Assuming they get those loaded, get 35 to the pad tomorrow, hopefully. Get it stacked, get your final checkouts out of the way, and they could go on Tuesday. We'll see. Maybe it gets pushed to Wednesday, though. It all depends on 35, because 14 looks ready to go. It all depends on them getting 35 ready, and I don't know why they haven't loaded the Starlinks yet, or the dumb links, but they're kind of taking their time for some reason. I really don't know what they're doing. So,
I'm sure they know what they're doing. They've done it twice before. They've never actually gotten them to deploy, though, yet, because of the whole...
Yeah, they know how to load them, they just haven't done it for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, also the whole haven't actually gotten to deploy them because of the RUD thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. Like you said, I think it all comes down to getting those Starlink dummy payloads, the Starlink simulators, the dummy links, whatever you want to call them, loaded in there, getting that rolled out. They've gotten pretty good at stacking, so I don't think that's as much of an issue. But hopefully, we will see that in 74 hours, 16 minutes, and 37 seconds when the window, the 90-minute launch window, opens on the 27th. But don't worry, we will of course be keeping you up to date daily until that with these countdown to launches, answering your questions, giving you all the latest on where the ship, the booster, Stage 0, and everything is. But if you want to know as the breaking news happens, follow us on all of our social channels, X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. We're on all of those, and of course we post updates as they happen instantly right there. And we can also answer, you can tag us in things there, all of that. And we have Starbase Live 24/7, where you'll be able to see the high bay come down and be able to see the Starlink satellites hopefully loaded soon. But that will wrap up today's. I need to, of course, thank the amazing people that helped to join me here. Ryan Caton, thank you for hopping on and talking about Starship.
Wonderful, as always. Fingers crossed we get a launch in about 3 days' time.
Fingers crossed. Absolutely. Everything that can be crossed is crossed. Ryan Weber, thank you for joining as well.
Pleasure as always, Sawyer. I always love coming on and talking Starship. It's always fun.
It is. And Jake Keegan, the one hopping on, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, bringing all of the views to you and the breaking news graphics. So thank you very much,
Don't
Jake.
use it again. I'm telling you. You're banned.
You asked for it.
Breaking news!
I'm never making you anything nice ever again. I give them this one thing, I'm like, don't use it too often, use it only when you need to, and they're like pressing the button like that every 5 minutes on the stream. It's ridiculous, I tell you.
They're like a little kid with the red button.
Yeah,
right?
exactly like that.
Well, here's your breaking news. The compound guy asking, will Sawyer ever stop the terrible jokes? Breaking news, no.
That's never gonna happen. That'll never happen, ever.
Yeah, the likelihood of that happening is like the likelihood of Ship 35 making it to space. What?
Ouch. Ooh.
I'm kidding. On that note, though, I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I've been your host for today's Countdown to Launch. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will catch you again 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for the next Countdown to Launch.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside, speed off. Say again, speed off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
There's nothing to be igniting flare, correct?